Good evening, everyone, and welcome in once again to Beyond the Boxscore, our weekly program where we break down all the latest action from high school, college, and professional ranks here on Pulaski Citizen Live. I'm your host, Mark Mize, joined once again by my co-host, Chandler Harmon. Chandler, I think it's time to retire
I think it's
this.
time to
I saw
retire
you
it.
put it up today, and I was
Yeah.
wondering but
I wanted us to officially retire it on
Yeah.
the show.
we're going to talk a little college football playoff action later with a segment with Adam Hansen. So be sure to tune into that. But for now, it's time to turn the page to basketball, Chandler.
It is, Mark, and I've had a chance this past week to go watch our Giles County basketball teams, and it's exciting. I'm excited for this season ahead of us.
And in this week's local newspaper, of course, a shameless plug, we have our basketball edition. They're not really basketball previews per se, because 4 games had already happened by the time that we did this. But this is kind of just like getting you ready for what's going to be the district run in January, kind of talking about what the teams have done in the first 3 weeks and kind of what you may have missed if you haven't had a chance to get out to a game yet. So make sure that you pick up a print edition or check out Pulaski Citizens website as well if you want to catch that. But it's been a lot of fun, Chandler, and it's also nice to be indoors right now.
It is, Mark. It's starting to feel like winter outside. With last week, as I'm sure people tuned in to watch Mingle Jingle,
Yeah,
freezing cold and some rain. So we're getting into the dead of winter, and it's cold, and it's the perfect time to be indoors for some basketball.
and we'll be talking next week about some Christmas tournaments, which always we have some great ones here in the county and beyond. And so we're going to take a quick time out. We'll be back with our Giles County basketball segment here on Beyond the Box Score.
For over 50 years, PES Energize has been proudly powering our community in Pulaski and Giles County, Tennessee. We're more than just an electric utility. We also offer internet and phone services. Our commitment to our customers and our community is what sets us apart. We're dedicated to providing safe, reliable, and innovative services. At PES Energize, we believe that serving you is a privilege. We're here for all your energy needs. Visit PESEnergize.com or call us today.
And welcome back in here on our Giles County basketball segment of Beyond the Box Score. I'm your host, Mark Mize, alongside my co-host, Chandler Harmon. Chandler, you've kind of taken up the Giles County basketball beat. We've both seen some games, but you've been the one who wrote the previews for both teams in the basketball edition. And just overall, 3 weeks into the season, how do you feel about what you've seen?
Mark, I feel pretty good about it. I got a really good view of them when they played Fayetteville last week, and they played some good basketball. The girls and guys team both dominated. Girls defensively looked amazing, and we kind of knew going into the season that would be potentially one of their strong suits, with them having some really good defensive players. And it looks like throughout the rest of the season, that's going to be one of their strengths. And then on the guy side, ball movement was great. We got to see some football players come in with Randolph and them coming in to play this game. Randolph looks like he'll be great passing ball. Newcomer Cole Ogle looked really good. So I think that for both teams, they're going to have a really good season.
We hope so. And so first, talking about the girls' action, of course, from last year, they lost star guard Carson Brown, who I think may have been their leading scorer from last year's club. Me and Wade covered that together there. And then, of course, Kai Gibson, who, was injured by the end of the year, but was really important to the program too. So you lost 2 really quality scorers, leaders on defense, just, a couple seniors who really had kind of set the stage for the program. But you look at what came back. Katie Pipkins, who is now a senior this year. Kinsley Morris, huge in the post there for the team there. Just a defensive stalwart. I mean, Karia Reese is so good in the post. Then you look at the guards with, of course, Mariah Holt there, Ashlyn Coleman, and now Brea Smith joining them. I mean, you think about how many players I just said. Despite losing those 2 key seniors from last year's group, they've got a great bunch that have come back. Just who have been some of the players who have impressed you, and what do you think this team will do this year to be successful?
I think Reese has been really good defensively. I think that she's going to be one of their standout players, and Holt's been really good for them. They I think will be really good as long as they, the Coach Stager talked to me a little bit last week actually, in both the preview and in the story, about how they've had multiple girls step up. Pipkins has stepped up along with Reese to create this new leadership role. And I think that all 3 of them have really been stand out in their, not only in leading the team, but defensively and offensively. I think those 3, along with the rest of the girls, if they can, get in the right rhythm and figure out to enhance offensive to go with their defensive performance, I think they could make a really good run this year.
Well, the thing is, they're pretty good at everything, in my opinion. Like you said, really, really good defensive squad. But they're a team that on the right night might hit 6 to 8 3-pointers.
Oh,
They're
for
a
sure.
team that has multiple guards who can drive the post and, potentially get a kick out, potentially hand it off to someone, potentially get to the foul line. And then, of course, Morris and Reese just have some of the best size and post ability that I think they've had in terms of having two players down low. Historically, they've usually always had one, but to have two at the same time, I mean, I just think they're such a well-rounded team.
I do too, Mark, and I think that we've seen them play some really good games so far. First game you and I got to see of them was against Page, and
Right.
they looked pretty decent against Page, and I think that they've taken a lot of what they learned from that matchup and they've applied it to what they're doing. And I think, like you said, they're a well-rounded team, and I think if they can get their offense to the same exceptional level we're seeing their defense in, they're going to be a very hard team to beat.
Yeah, and obviously that Page score was a little bit lopsided, but that night both of us watched and said, I think this team's going to be really good, though. And since then, they've really been on a tear there. And so it's been great to see. Just finally, before we turn to the boys' side for the Bobcats, just anything else that Coach Steger said that really stood out to you when you had a chance to talk to him a couple of times last week?
I think him talking about how, we talked about the loss of those seniors last year that were a very big part of the team. I think what stood out to me was how he's talked about how all of these players on this year's team have come in and taken up those leadership roles and helped to transition the girls and take what they learned from last year's seniors to kind of transition the team into this new period and how that is helping them to move forward and compete.
Awesome. Well, remember that we're not even to Christmas yet, and so there's still a lot of time to catch Giles County girls basketball as they're having another great season. Remember, last year they were one of the most improved teams in the mid-state, as I think they went from 4 to 12 or 13 wins. So they basically tripled their win total. So really a program that's headed in the right direction there. Looking at the boys' side now, just talking to Coach Campbell, what were some of your initial thoughts from what you heard from him?
I think the biggest thing that I learned from him was just that, the guys from the football team are getting really well acclimated to this season and that they've added a lot of depth and strength to this team that they didn't have in that Page game, which interesting fact, they'll actually be rematching against Page later this season. And Coach knows that's going to be an exciting matchup to see, how well do they compete now, like at that point versus, the first game when they didn't have all those people that they have now. And so I think what's really stood out to me is just that how much of a difference and what I saw too is how much of a difference the guys we got from the football team have made. Damari Allen looked really good, does some things that don't show up necessarily on the stats, but was making some good moves for him. Code Ogle looked really good in transition. He's a really good shooter. Xavier Randolph, franchise, looked really, really good. Looks like he'll be a well-rounded player for them. So all those guys come back into potentially having Xavier Hanna back here soon. I think having all those guys are really going to help elevate the position even more because they have a bunch of great guys that we saw, you and I against Page, but now they've got even more really good players to round out that team.
Well, really, I think one of the biggest things versus Page was Campbell made the point after the game. Basically, all their size was still in the football field that night. That was the Tuesday before the quarterfinal game. And so, that's kind of the give and take you have with a deep football run is some of the guys take a little longer to get those cleats off and get into their basketball uniforms. But really, really impressed. They had lost all their size, in terms of having them on the football field. But once they come back, I feel like versus the Uptua brothers, who are both top 10 in the 2027 classification for the state of Tennessee, two twin sophomores who both play for Page. I feel like that's going to be a different matchup when they're back out on the court. Really looking at some of the guard play, though, that night, the first thing that you and I were talking about was Kason Howard. I mean, just looks so natural there as a junior. I mean, he was starting as a freshman. He's only improved inside game, outside game, just his ability in transition or the half-court set. The offense really lives and dies with Kason Howard.
Absolutely, Mark. And Kason Howard looked really good again in the matchup I got to see against Fayetteville. A game in which, eventually we got to a running clock point because they were just dominating that performance. I think that with Randolph, I think that those two are really pairing together well. And I think that Kason Howard's going to be great. But I think that he's now got some players in there that help kind of pull some of that stress away from him. I'm excited to see if Colt Ogle can continue this tear that he's on with these threes, though.
Yeah, definitely. And then finally, they do have a couple injuries on the team with Deshaun Howard, of course, and then Xavier Hanna as well. And so I hadn't heard injury reports there, but if they can get those guys back, I mean, I just feel like the depth is even better than last year. You know, you lost some guys with some size like Latarius Brewer, but overall, I feel like this is once again, kind of like we said with the girls, a really well-rounded and deep team that on a night where you get in foul trouble, on a night where maybe you have somebody banged up, they can really go the distance with multiple guys.
Absolutely, Mark. And we kind of, going back to the girls team, I forgot to mention, we kind of had a few players that got into a little bit of foul trouble, and they did really good in that. And I think that, like you said, the guys team, they have enough people that they could, if someone gets into foul trouble, they have people that can rotate in. You know, and especially when we get these injuries back, I think that we'll have Howard and Hannah hopefully in the next week or two. So when they come back, I think that they'll play a very well-rounded. They'll have a bunch of guys that can just step up into whatever role they need.
All right. Any final thoughts before we move on to the Richland segment?
I think, Mark, that it's great to have basketball in the county, and that I'm really looking forward to these next matchups, including Friday night's matchup against Spring Hill.
Absolutely. And so Friday night, Giles County will host Spring Hill, and Richland will host Wayne County there, as we'll have both of those on WKSR. And Chandler, I hear, is making his WKSR debut.
I am, Mark, and I'm excited.
Absolutely. And so that was our Giles County basketball segment. We're going to take a quick timeout, and we'll be back talking some Richland basketball here on Beyond the Box Score.
When it comes to real estate, Haney Realty and Property Management is the team you can trust. Our extensive knowledge of the market and industry allows us to help our clients with any real estate need. We know how to get results. So whether you're looking to buy, sell, or rent, let us put our expertise to work for you. Call us today at 931-347-9150 or visit HaneyRealtyPem.com to learn more. Haney Realty and Property Management, your best friend in real estate.
So, Mr. Whitfield, it's been a few months since we talked last, getting ready for the Christmas concert. Kind of talk to me a little bit about what you're doing to get everyone ready for that as we get closer to it.
Yeah, so it is Christmas concert season again. We always try to do things a little bit like different every time, but this year we have both the concert band and the brass quintet coming with us for this one, and we're going to have 3 pieces from the concert band, 2 from the jazz band, and we're going to try to make it a lot more fun this year, especially with the style of music that we have. Christmas is obviously, it's Christmas time, it's the holiday season, and we want to make sure that it's like a fun, intentionally fun of what the music that we're doing. So we're doing stuff that's swung, we're doing stuff that's more jazzy, maybe a little bit cheesy, but still stuff that has the Christmas spirit to it, so like everybody has like a good time, because I think that's what that we should bring to the Christmas time for the Christmas music that we should be playing.
Absolutely. And then you talk about bringing different styles of pieces into it. Does that present some complications in getting it ready to have all those different types of pieces come together for that?
It does. It's music that we might not be as used to doing, with stuff that is swung, stuff that is like intentionally like jazzy, even stuff that's in different time signatures that the kids are used to. Putting all that together is different. Even our last piece that we're doing with Mr. Faulkner, our narrator, is Twas the Night Before Christmas. It's not even like a full song. It's narration and little pieces of it. It's more like us, the band, narrating him, which is a whole different style, a whole different form of music that we've never done here. So getting that together too, it's just different, but all together it's supposed to be a fun thing that we're doing with it.
So last question, looking at, they're going to see clips of that last piece that y'all practice. Can you give a little bit of a tease for those other pieces that we'll see in this concert?
So the other pieces that we'll have, along with the brass quintet, the brass quintet is a new thing that we'll be having to any concert, let alone the Christmas concert, but they will be playing a couple of hymns, and then even with the last piece that we're doing with We Three Kings, it is in that jazzy swing style of it, and doing that not only with the brass quintet, but doing that swing style, that's totally different, going to be fun to do. And then with our concert band, we'll be doing the other 2 pieces are Christmas a la big band, so also swung, also jazz, with nods to other like swing favorites that have nothing to do with Christmas, but a lot of these Christmas songs are in the style of those pieces, along with Do You Hear What I Hear, very famous Christmas tune, very singable. Everybody knows that one. We're excited to put that one on as well.
Absolutely. It sounds exciting. Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. As dry leaves are before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little booth. 1, 2, 3,
When it comes to insurance, Winterburg and Associates Insurance is the team you can trust. We offer coverage for your home, auto, business, and more. We work hard to find the best policy for you at the best price. Our personalized service means we take the time to understand your needs and make sure you understand your options. We want you to feel confident and secure with your insurance policy. Let us make insurance simple for you. Get a quote today at winterburinsurance.com or call us at 931-363-8638.
And we're back here on Beyond the Box Score. I'm your host, Mark Mize, joined once again for this Richland basketball segment with my co-host, Chandler Harmon. Chandler, you had a chance to see Richland versus Lawrence County earlier this year. Just what were your initial thoughts? Getting a chance to see the Lady Raiders and the Raiders.
You know, Mark, I think that both the teams looked really good in that matchup. Lawrence County's, a very good school in football. You got to cover them against Giles County. But they're really good in all the sports they play. So watching Richland play some good basketball against them, it made me feel pretty good about the direction both teams are going.
Raiders and Lady Raiders, both 4-1 on the season so far. And for them, this is something Coach Campbell talked about on the Giles County side, and it's just as true for Richland. They have just a gauntlet in non-district play. I mean, you look at Giles County there, playing, like the Pages of the world, Spring Hills, like a lot of teams that are 3 and 4A type teams. And then, of course, for Richland, they're playing a lot of 2 and 3A teams. I mean, just overall this season, they played Loretto. They played Lawrence County. They played Nashville Christian, which, man, I hated the fact that Curtis, who, I apologize to Adam Hansen, who we're going to have here in a second, but Curtis, who flipped his commit, the number 1 quarterback prospect in the nation, he plays basketball for Nashville Christian.
Oh, wow.
But he had won the state championship the day before, and so he wasn't out there on the court. But, they're playing such good teams, and that just pays dividends once you get to February, to March. And I think that's one of the big things that both Chad Hall and Jason Lovelace talked about in our interviews before Richland, was the fact that you're going to see some great teams in the regions and beyond. Of course, Richland girls made it to semifinals last year in the state. You have to be ready for that. You have to have had the kind of experience coming into that leads you to being, we've seen this before. We've been there by the time you get to that point.
Mark, it's the same kind of application that you take with football with the Giles County Bobcats, for instance, where they played all these very good teams that were in different classifications to get them ready. If you're not playing those kind of matchups, in the regular season in basketball, you're not ready for the toughest of the opponents you're going to be playing when you get into district play. It's all about getting ready and getting to that point that you can play meaningful basketball when it matters.
Especially because historically, Richland didn't have that strong of a district. Now, things have changed this year. Moore County's in there, Huntland's in there, Fayetteville City's in there, Cornersville's in there. Some of those programs have had pretty good years. I actually think the degree of difficulty in district play, I'm not going to say every year, but I'm going to say by the law of averages, has actually improved a little bit. And so that is one thing to note about this season is, with the exception of one team, it's a whole new district look that they're going to be getting starting in January. But just talking about the individual teams now, Richland girls, 4-1 on the year so far. Like we said, wins over at Lawrence County, Loretto, and Nashville Christian. Obviously over East Hickman as well. But those first 3 teams I mentioned, really, really good teams. They did end up falling to Cascade, but what they have this year, I think, is a special team that has a chance to go back to Murfreesboro again. And we saw it the night we watched them versus Lawrence County. I think it all starts with that senior class of Bailey Blair and Mary Avery McNeese, who are returning starters. And Blair, just one of the best guards I think I've ever seen put on a uniform for Richland.
Mark, I think it's kind of similar to what we were talking about in our Giles segment with Case and Howard. Richland will live and die. They have many good players, but they live and die by what she does on the court. She looked really great in the matchup we watched against Lawrence County. And, I think that, like you said, they've got a very special roster that can take them pretty far into this season.
Yeah, and she's averaging about 20 points per game right now, right at it, coming into that Cascade game. Had 24. Every single one of those points mattered in only a 2-point win over Loretto. Remember, they only had 43 points that night. She scored 24 of them, so scored over half of the team's points. Mary Avery McNeese, she's had a couple straight healthy years now after really struggling with some knee injuries. Offensively, defensively, I think she's doing fantastic. Just looks great out there. Honestly, now kind of thinking, hey, maybe this is a college player as well, as Blair is signing with Division II Kentucky Wesleyan. But McNeese has looked great. Had the game winner versus Nashville Christian, a game where they won that game by 2 points as well. And then really, I think a lot of it is the players who are coming around them. Bailey Hollis is a senior, playing great defense, just one of the fastest players on the floor. Mary Catherine Butler, MK Butler, who is coming back after she had a season injury last year, had 5 key points, I think, versus Loretto as well. Really great senior class. And then you look at that sophomore class as well. Kate Kirk and Elizabeth Gordon both started significant amount of games last year as freshmen for a team that went to the semifinals. Getting young players that kind of experience is huge.
Absolutely, Mark. And, when you get them that experience in that first season, it helps them to, take another jump the next year. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing this year with the team. I think that that experience and that maturity you kind of gain from taking on those kind of roles early on is paying dividends this year for them. I think that that's going to help them to go farther, and we'll kind of continue to see them grow in those roles as we go on along the season.
Yeah, talking about those sophomores, Kate Kirk is actually their third leading scorer, plays great defense, great natural size in the post. And now really she's starting to find her stride in terms of getting to the free throw line, really making it tough for her to guard in the post there. Elizabeth Gordon, they kind of suggested she's kind of the heir apparent in terms of that role that you saw last year that was filled by Caitlin Bass, one of the grittiest, best defensive players I've ever seen at Richland. And as a sophomore, you're seeing that for Gordon. She is just an unbelievable defender. She has great court awareness. She's a great leader. You look at other sophomores. Danny Lynn Galloway has such a special skill set because she is a little over 6 feet tall, just like Kirk. But she plays guard, really, in terms of her skill set there. And that's just, at the single A level, there aren't a lot of teams that compare for that kind of size and skill set. And then we won't have time to mention every single one on the roster, but all of the sophomores, the couple juniors. At the end of the day, there's so many other players other than the ones I mentioned who are ready now to increase their minutes. We already have seen them in, some really big time situations this year. And that's the thing that Chad Hall really said, was the fact there were a lot of players who are ready to, increase their playing time, who have, grown. And now this is really a complete team. You have 12 or 13 players who are all going to see at times meaningful minutes this year. And so if they get Caroline Cheek healthy, unfortunately, Sissy Randolph is out for the year, but even Hall mentioned how important she is, coming to every game, supporting the team, kind of almost acting as an assistant coach on the bench there with them. This is a team where I really think they have great cohesiveness. They have great talent. I think the girls are going to be really special this year. Looking at the boys, what were your initial thoughts seeing them versus Lawrence County?
Mark, I was pretty impressed with them. Maybe a little surprised. I didn't know what to expect with them going into the game, but I think that coming out of it, I feel like they're going to be a very good team this year, a very well-rounded team. Saw a lot of threes from them in that matchup that, ended up being a big part of how they won that matchup. So I thought that they did pretty good.
Yeah, before we talk about all the players who had returning starting experience or a lot of minutes, that fifth starting spot was always kind of going to be up in the air, I think, from a fan perspective. I'm sure they kind of knew in the summer and, going into the season what they had. But Jack Jackson came out that night, hit 4 3-pointers. I think in maybe his first career start, at least one of his first career starts. Hollis Miller has gotten some starts in that fifth role as well there. Hudson Griggs coming from the football field may see some time in that spot. They just have a lot of really, really quality depth there. Nathan Price in the post. The other players that are coming along, Jensen Fugelberg is going to join them, more and more as he acclimates from football too there. And then probably even a couple guys, Colin Johnson, Lane Dooley, I think is getting healthy. I'm going to forget somebody, but I mean, they just, like the girls, have a lot of quality depth. But the thing is, coming back this year, you had 4 guys who all either started or played starter-type minutes at times last year. And that's what's making the graduation of Carter Edwards, the graduation of Andrew Huff, the graduation of Luke Jones. That's what's kind of easing that transition, is you have a lot of guys who either started or had starter-type minutes that are now growing into those roles. And this is something interesting I think Jason said I want to get your take on. He said, we're not a young team, because for the record, in terms of minutes, they're not. But we are young in our current roles in terms of each year, even if you're a veteran player, you may come in and you are new to a position, new to a role on a team, whether it, potentially be in terms of schematically or in terms of leadership. And I think that's something that's really important.
Mark, I think that's a really good mindset to come in with too. While, like you said, a lot of these guys may have those minutes, it takes a little bit of time to adjust to a different role or a different position. Different positions have to do different things, and there might be things that, where they were playing on the court before, maybe they didn't have to focus on as much on something. I think that, with time, with the season, I think we'll see a lot of guys playing different positions for them in different spots. But I think that as we go on, I think that we'll see them all mature and grow into those roles.
Yeah. And looking at those 4 players, Jamison Andrews, I believe, is a 4-year starter now, plays great defense as a point guard. And really, we saw the second half of last season when he catches fire from a scoring perspective, he has the chance to be one of the top top 2 leading scorers on this team. Will Shirey, such great size. At this point, I think he may be as tall as Cade McCormick, who we're about to talk about in the post. But he, once again, like Galloway on the girls' side, is playing a guard position with that elite size and length there. Just been really impressed. He might be, it's hard to say if I had to give a most improved player after 3 weeks, but it might be him. I've been super impressed. And then, of course, Cooper Jackson started a lot of games last year for him too. Great 3-point shooter, really does a lot of things well. Was early in his career, I felt kind of a defensive specialist, but now he's a guy who also is threatening to score. Any night you're not watching him, he might score 20 points. And then finally, Cade McCormick is the player who I think has the chance to be the biggest impact on this team. Just for the single A level, he was the one you're seeing down low, making those elite post moves. I mean, just his skill set is really, he does a lot of things. I think I remember Jason saying this. He does a lot of things you just can't coach because he just has this phenomenal, talent. And in the post, sometimes you don't have those every year. And I think that just from a sophomore to a junior year, been so impressed. I mean, you look at how many guys I just said there. They have so many guys who can take on the scoring load any given night. And on a night where they're all playing in rhythm, when they're all, playing in their roles, I think this is a Richland boys team. The girls are getting a ton of credit, and they should, because they went to the semifinals last year and return a lot of talent. I think the boys have the chance to have that same type of run this year.
Absolutely, Mark. And it's kind of one of those things that, maybe a little underrated by some people when they came into the season. And now, they have the chance to really impress and go out there and do something that none of us saw coming at the start of the season.
Absolutely. So Lady Raiders and Raiders are both 4-1 on the campaign coming into Friday night's game versus Wayne County, which of course was always a big rival in non-district and in district play in the past. This year, Richland moves a little east, so they don't have them in district play anymore, but still should be a great matchup. So we're going to take another quick timeout, and we're going to be back with a little football again, as Adam Hansen will join me, and we'll talk a little college football playoffs here on Beyond the Box Score.
For a new job, let M&M Staffing be your guide. With over 20 years of experience, we know how to connect great people with great opportunities. We work with over 80 companies, so we're sure to find the perfect job for you. Our team is dedicated to helping you succeed, and our high customer satisfaction rate proves it. Ready to get started? Visit us at mnmstaffing.net or give us a call today at 931-347-4255.
Gas Department of Pulaski is here to help you save money. Natural gas is safe, efficient, and cost-effective. It's up to 50 to 60% less expensive than electricity for home heating. Plus, it's clean and efficient, so you can feel good about your choice. Call us today for service or visit our website to learn more. Make the switch to natural gas and start saving today.
And we're back here for our final segment on Beyond the Box Score. I'm your host, Mark Mize, joined once again by Adam Hansen. Adam, How about those Georgia Bulldogs?
Go Dogs, sick 'em, baby. I mean, you have to play the schedule you're given. They had a tough schedule last year. It was a little bit less tough this year, but they still had a bunch of tough-ranked opponents. SEC's championship was not on my bingo card this year. I was just hoping to get in the playoffs. And the way it was shaping up, I was like, maybe buy. And then somehow the SEC championship fell in our lap. You go against Bama. Kirby is 1-7 against Bama and never won the SEC championship against Bama, especially at Mercedes-Benz, where Nick Saban was 17-1 with his only loss being against Tebow. So a lot of demons were overcome in that game, and I was elated by the end of it. And that created a lot more chaos and problems in this college football. And speaking of Georgia, no apology needed from the previous segment. Can't blame Curtis. Lee's a fantastic coach. He gets to stay in Nashville and gets to fill the shoes of Diego Pavia, where he probably wouldn't see the field for 1 or 2 years over at Georgia. So I think it's a good move for him.
That is assuming that Pavia doesn't win his lawsuit to have another year of eligibility.
That's true. He might be the next Crick Swanky, where he's 30-something years old and still playing quarterback in college. So
I think they have a Netflix show about that. But anyway, first 12-team playoff time. I guess we should mention, obviously, as we just noted, Georgia, big win over Alabama, really dominant there in the SEC championship. Indiana ends up winning by 3 over Ohio State in one that I think was a bit of an upset for those who haven't been paying attention to Kurt Signetti and the Hoosiers this year there as well. The ACC championship, kind of unfortunate for the ACC because they end up getting a team in, as we'll mention in a moment, but it's not their champion, as Duke ends up beating Virginia and keeps Virginia from getting the auto bid there.
So, in overtime. Crazy game.
So that led to a couple, 2 different group of 5 champions getting into the playoffs. But first off, before we talk about all that, what are your thoughts on a 12-team playoff? Right now, we're still doing the thing where it's 4 buys. Of note, I did not know this until I saw the championship games on Saturday. I didn't realize, remember last year, it was the top 4 conference champions got a bye. This year, it was just the top 4 teams. So as a result, Ohio State still gets a bye, even though they didn't win their conference. So that was, I think, a good change there compared to last year. But what do you think about a 12-team playoff overall?
It's going to be flawed. You're going to have people that are upset regardless, even if it's 16 teams. I think that they set some caveats in the very first one with the conference champions. And if you remember, the 12th team last year was Arizona State, a Big 12 team that almost beat Texas. They were young and they had some injury problems this year. That's why they didn't do as well. But, this year I think it was just the chaos and then needing all those conference champions went in good. But I think a lot of precedent was set with this playoffs because you're running into scenarios. I think you will see it eventually evolve to 16 teams. I think that the hey, my team should have made it will be quelled at that point because you're getting into 3-loss teams. And you can't really look at many 3-loss teams and go, you really don't deserve to be in this, So I think a lot of precedent was set in the fact that head-to-head matters, and I think they're still trying to figure out how to keep the conference game relevant. That's why you didn't see Ohio State fall to 3. I figured that if Ohio State beat Indiana, then Georgia would then slide into 2. I was curious what seed Georgia would end up being based off how they viewed that. And with Ohio State losing and them being 1 all year, they kept them as 2, which I completely get. And then, you look at those top 4 teams, I think they're the hottest teams right now with Texas Tech, Indiana, Georgia, and Ohio State. But going back to finish that precedent thought, I think the 2 things you notice is head-to-head matters. That's where they said Miami, Notre Dame, hey, it came down to head-to-head. Miami won at the beginning of the year. It doesn't matter when you won head-to-head. You only played once. Number 2 is they're trying to figure out how to keep that conference game relevant. And, it shows there's 2 sides you've seen all year with the independents in Notre Dame because you forget there's other independents like UConn out there. UConn was 9-3.
All 3 of their losses were in overtime, by the way. They were so close to 12-0.
Correct. And they have a quarterback that's in there for the offensive player. I forgot what the name of the award is, the Maxwell Award or something like that. But he's a runner-up, and you wouldn't even know that. And all you hear about is Notre Dame, and they usually get the benefit out in the tools. Well, guess what? If you were playing a game in a conference championship, you would have your opportunity to make the playoffs. So I kind of don't feel sorry for that. This is the downside not being in a conference. And every other sport that Notre Dame has is in a conference except football. So, you chose to play the ACC. They saved you in 2020 during COVID and allowed you to play them in like a 9-game schedule. And I don't think you really have room to talk because you don't have the ability to play in the conference championship and just kind of bitchy this year. So
yeah. Well, see, to me, I just don't know how I feel about a 12-team playoff.
Right.
I would prefer either 8 or 16 because I think the buys are kind of awkward.
It is.
Because there's two things. One, Georgia comes all the way back, wins the SEC, and everyone knows is destined for either the 2 or 3 seed. They end up getting the 3 seed there. And now, how are you rewarded? You don't get to host a game in Athens. And I like the fact that later in the playoffs, you have some of the big bowls, the Sugar Bowl and the, Rose Bowl, all these, legendary games, legendary venues, getting to host later playoffs games. But I think the first round should include everyone. And I think that you should get the opportunity to host because, one, Georgia would make money off that. Two, unforgettable experience for the fans. And that's really robbed from them, in which now you have to wait and go to a venue instead. And so I really think 16 is the best number. And I think the second best number would be 8. I think 12 is the wrong number because I think the buys are strange. A lot of people are like, yeah, you want to stay home and get a little healthier and everything, but I don't know if you do, just because, like I said, you lose money, you lose potentially a fan experience, and then also maybe you get a little rusty on a bye week there. So I just wanted to get that out of the way first. Then looking this year at who all we had in there, I really like the current system in terms of the conference champions.
Yeah.
Because so many people are so upset that BYU, Notre Dame, Texas, and Vanderbilt, 4 teams that a lot of people think are pretty deserving there, aren't getting in because you have, of course, JMU and Tulane get the 12th and 11th seeds, respectively. I said it backwards. But the thing is to me this. If you don't give them a chance to get in the playoffs with some form of automatic, which usually only one group of 5 team gets in the playoffs, but the rule is the top 5 conference champions get in. And so if the ACC's champion is lower than 2 different group of 5 teams, ACC champion doesn't get in. That's how that happened. But if you don't give teams a chance to get an auto bid there, why are they even playing in Division I FBS? Why are they even in the same classification? Just let them have their own thing at that point, because they should have that opportunity. Is it going to produce the best games? I don't know if James Madison and Tulane are going to be competitive. Precedent suggests they won't be. But
and the odds and the
and Vegas doesn't think so. Ole Miss Tulane already happened this year, right? This is a rematch.
This is true.
But I just feel like you have to give them that chance. And at some point, just like in NCAA basketball, we're going to see a great run. I don't know when it'll be. Maybe it'll be this year. But to me, I don't feel bad for BYU and Notre Dame and Texas and Vanderbilt because I think that those conference champions from the group of 5 really deserve this opportunity, and I think it's compelling television to see non-traditional matchups like that.
I want to think about the NCAA. We're never going to 64 teams. That'd be preposterous. But just think about when you see that upset happen, it is like amazing. The Cinderella story. Everybody loves it. It's one of those things. So I agree it will happen. To be honest with you, it may happen this year with JMU. I know they're playing Oregon. You kind of want to be that 5 seed. JMU is sneaky in the fact that they don't get a lot of television in the sense that they have a lot of players that have made the NFL. A lot of them were linemen. I believe in the championship Tampa Bay Buccaneers team with Tom Brady a couple years back, I think 3 of their starting linemen were from JMU. This year, I believe JMU is also one of the only teams, along with Ohio State, I think it's Indiana, and I think it might be Oregon, where they're top 10 in offense and defense in all of football. Plus, in the game where they won the championship against Memphis, they were playing in snow. So they've played in cold weather and bad elements and things like that. So I think that they're a little bit hard-edged and could possibly create a problem for Oregon because I believe that's going to be nasty weather up there. And they're going to be going. But I believe rewarding those conferences for playing well. And Tulane, they're Tulane. They played Ole Miss, but they also scheduled the SEC.
Yeah.
And so that will make their strength of schedule better. And they know they're probably going to go in these SEC games, but they want that test. And so I like them winning their conference and being rewarded for that. And then again, for somebody like Notre Dame, you could have joined both their conferences. I think that they would have took Notre Dame in 5 seconds. You could have easily won that conference, and boom, you would have been conference champions. So the other thing with BYU, you only lost 2 games, but they were both against the same team in your conference, and they absolutely wiped the floor with you.
Yeah, they weren't close.
So that lets me know that, hey, if you go up against other teams that are on the level of Texas Tech, that are in the Big Ten, that are in the SEC, you're probably going to get waxed. It's just honesty,
Yeah. I will say two more things before I make you do the hard thing and pick
I love
some
it.
games,
I'm
pick
ready.
on who you might think might be the champion there. One, what do you think about kind of the precedent that we've seen, which once again was thrown out the window slightly with the Big
Mhm.
12 championship, but I think for a reason, especially with where BYU was.
Correct.
Because I think they only dropped one spot after the conference championship. The committee has basically said that what happens in conference championships largely won't be factored in terms of if you lose a conference championship game, even if you lose it pretty convincingly, which I'll be honest, I think Alabama lost it pretty convincingly.
I would agree with that.
I mean, as a Georgia fan, of course, you're going to agree with that. But
I would
but
agree with that.
I feel like that they've kind of said what happens in a conference championship game isn't going to be held against you, because suddenly, if not, you don't want a 10-2 team to say, well, we don't want to go to the conference championship because it might hurt us if we lose. You want teams to want to be in that game. And so what do you think about the fact that the committee is basically saying, in all reasonable cases, we're really not going to hold that against you?
And I think they should, because I had this weird feeling going in because we're hurt. Actually, the bye week will help us. We've had some offensive linemen. Our starting center, Jake Bobo, has been injured. He missed the SEC championship. Redshirt freshman had to start for him, did a fantastic job. But that allows them to heal. But it's one of those things where you need to reward and they understand it's like a pecking order, right? So it's like the reason the Big 12 didn't go is because everybody knows the Big 10, the SEC are these powerhouse conferences. There's a reason why I believe Notre Dame decided to play the ACC conference. They could have decided to play anybody, but they chose the ACC. And I think it's because of that top end heavy strength that you see in the Big 10 and the SEC. And so rewarding those conferences and not penalize them, it's like the thing, yeah, you get hurt for having that bye week, but you don't want to see a team get hurt for playing an extra week.
Right.
And then, like, I go back to Notre Dame thing, if they played in the conference championship, they would have had their opportunity to raise that. So and it's weird when I was going to the SEC championship thinking, is this good? What happens if we lose this game? What if we get hurt in this game? And that's never the thing. Usually the SEC championship was one of the biggest things out there, and you knew whatever team won that was going to the playoffs and have an opportunity. And a lot of times, both teams made the playoffs, even when it was 4 teams. So, and that was just based off how good those teams were. So I think that's the hard part of this whole system, is trying to figure out how to continue to make that conference championship week matter. And I think that they, like you said, the precedent was set. If you're Big 10, if you're SEC, you're not going to get injured by it. If you're ACC and you're an 8-5 team, sorry, you ain't going to make it, as they shouldn't. I mean, a 5-loss team. That's why you can't have conference bids, and I think that's why you're going to see a lot more of these teams going in conference, like the SEC playing a 9-game conference schedule coming up, things like that, where they're just going to really be in their conferences, and you're not going to see a lot of these out-of-conference games.
Well, you set me up for my other point very, very well there, which was I thought that one of the storylines that I thought was most interesting but did not really matter was the fact that they let Texas pass Vanderbilt, even though Vanderbilt's 10-2, Texas is 9-3. Now, the avid listener obviously will probably be like, oh, well, also, didn't Texas beat Vanderbilt? They did. But really, to me, this isn't about that head-to-head as much as it is about the fact that Vanderbilt scheduled a really, really poor non-conference schedule, which, by the way, they probably did 7 years ago. You can't really blame the current administration.
These games are scheduled way in advance.
These games are scheduled like 6 or 7 years in advance. And 6 or 7 years ago, Vanderbilt was bad. But really, here, you see Texas played Ohio State in the first game of the year. That's a tough matchup. That's a game that not a lot of people are going to schedule there. So I think part of it is you're saying, oh, well, Texas did beat Vanderbilt head-to-head. But, Texas had an extra loss. I think it's because they're not really counting the Ohio State loss against them, because you want teams to take that shot and play hard non-conference games. And as a result, I think Texas was rewarded for that, even though, of course, it didn't get them in the playoffs, but it gave them a better ranking than I think they normally would have had because they took a shot.
And I want to shout out Coach Lee for that, because he agrees with you 1,000%. He's not one time said we deserve to be in this. He goes, we had the games and the opportunities and we should have won them. And that's what you want to hear out of your leader and your coach. And I like the way that he approached that, because I think he sees it the same way as you.
Yeah. So that suggests, hey, even if they potentially make this a 16-team playoff, don't just assume the SEC is going to have 3 cupcakes along with their 9-game conference schedule. When it comes down to, that last spot in, sometimes having a stronger strength of schedule pays dividends, as
Yes.
we've seen. And so finally, just initially looking at the bracket, who are a couple teams you think could win, and who's the team that brings it home for the college football playoffs?
I think that, that JMU Oregon game, I'm very curious to see because I know they're going to be hyped up. Oregon sat for a week. I don't see Oregon dropping that game at home, but it would be interesting. The next game, Texas Tech versus Oregon, that's going to be super crazy. I think Texas Tech is legitimate. They have the best defensive line in the nation. They can play very good defense, and as long as that quarterback Rodriguez is in there, they can play offense. So they are going to be a tough out for anybody. This rematch of Alabama, Oklahoma there in
That's going to be fun.
That's going to be a fun game. Some bad blood. I know Bama's going to be ready to prove all the haters wrong after the SEC championship. And then, of course, losing to Oklahoma earlier in the year, they're going to want to get revenge. So I really don't know who to pick in that game. That game is kind of wild. Ole Miss is interesting to the sense that how are they going to play? They got to keep all their coordinators, but they don't have Lane Kiffin. So are they going to still be mad and they're going to be ready to prove a point? The defensive coordinator was elevated to the head coach. So that thing is all weird. So I'm very curious to see how that plays out because I think Tulane is the weakest team in this in the entire bracket. And I think that and they've already played them once.
Right.
And so we're going to see a lot in Ole Miss, I think, early. We're going to see how they're going to respond to everything that happened with Kiffin. But I see them to come out of that. And then that Miami A&M game. Is A&M going to play like they did in the SEC championship, or are they going to play like they did against Notre Dame and all these other tough games? Not the SEC championship, sorry. The rivalry week. Are they going to play like they did in the rivalry week? Or are they going to play like they did all season? So that's going to be an interesting game. I know Miami's going to be up for that game. They actually have a good defense. And if Carson Beck isn't throwing 4 interceptions a game, that offense is good. But, Carson Beck, he will give those to you. He will be like, hey, today I'm throwing 4 picks and 2 of them are going to be in the end zone.
A traumatized Georgia fan.
Yes. So very interested to see out of that. And then coming out of that, it's going to be hard to beat Indiana, Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas State if they're playing like they are now. As I said before, I do believe those are the 4 hottest teams in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the champion's going to come from the top 4. My champion is such a easy pick to make in terms of being like, oh, man, that's such a cop-out that you pick the number 1 team. But I think Indiana is just so well-rounded. They do everything well. They're, I think, maybe the best coached team out of all the teams in the playoffs. And just quite frankly, they're a team of destiny, it just feels like. They're ready to erase with a bad taste in their mouth from last year, in which a lot of people said, oh, well, they were proven right that they didn't go anywhere in the playoffs. And so, I feel like they're kind of this year's Penn State where they can win a couple games in the playoffs potentially. And quite frankly, I think that they will bring it all home. My dark horse, though, is Texas Tech, because Texas Tech is proving what they proved in softball. For those who don't watch softball, Texas Tech went out, bought the best player in the nation last year, and made it to the championship.
And there was a pitcher, and she could
for
pitch
Stanford.
Every game, all game.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point is Texas Tech is proving if you're willing to spend enough NIL money, you can just buy shots at the championship. I'm not going to say you can buy championships, but you can buy a shot at the championship. They did it in softball. They finished second. I think that there's reason to believe that it's not just the defensive line, the offensive line. They say they have the best front 7 in the nation, according to a lot of the prognosticators there. And just quite frankly, I really think that they are well-rounded. A lot of people aren't ready for what they do. And line play matters so much more than you think.
Yes.
A lot of people don't realize because line play is harder to talk about as a commentator, especially in game. But line play is the most important thing that's happening on the field.
And that's why I went back to the JMU. That's why I brought that stat about their linemen, because if you have good linemen, then you can show up. And the reason Georgia's playing so well now was they did figure out their offensive line was always kind of decent this year, as what they were not last year.
Had a couple young guys.
Yeah, and then that defensive line, if you watch that Bama game, they were getting pressure finally. I believe they went the first 7 games without getting sacked. So it's the hardest thing because it's ball snap. You follow the ball. You follow the ball. You don't watch the actual line. But the game is always told if you can watch those trenches. And whoever is more dominant in those trenches is going to win. And that's what really surprised me at Indiana. Mendoza came out in that championship game, took a shot. I think I texted you. I said, well, it's over. Mendoza is out. He's not going to win the Heisman. He's out. I thought he was out. He gets back up, gets right back in there. And what I really like about Texas Tech, Indiana, you called it, is that coaching. Their coaching is really good. Texas Tech has a really good coach too. And I think it's being able to take all these pieces from all these places, transfer portal, NIL money, all these things. And you have to have a coach that figures out what's our strength and how do I form this team and what's our identity. And Texas Tech has done it. Indiana has done it. And that game, I expect to see them in that semifinals, and that's going to be a heck of a game. I'm very excited to see that. Like I said, I think we'll see Georgia and Ohio State in there. Also, I would like to see a Indiana-Georgia championship. Honestly, I wouldn't be mad at Texas Tech. And ironically, people are saying Texas Tech should join the SEC, and I think they've earned it. I mean, especially if they keep doing what they did this year. Come on, man. We could use the competition. Why not, right?
Well, one of the funniest things that happened during that championship game for the Big Ten was you could tell just by the Heisman odds that were changing for, and I don't personally sports bet, but I know a lot of people who do. You could see that what they thought was happening in the game and how well they thought people were playing. Because over the course of the game, Mendoza, San, and Pavia all slipped into first place in the in the voting odds.
It's wild.
Because basically what they were saying was that at first they were like, oh, well, if Ohio State wins, it's going to be Sam. And then it's like, oh, well, Mendoza's looked like the best player this year. And then when neither of them looked that good for 2.5 quarters, they're like, well, let's give it to Pavia. But Mendoza ended up, of course, coming back big late. And now he's the heavy favorite to win the Heisman there. So I just thought that was a funny little note. But Adam, it was a lot of fun. For your
Pleasure
sake,
being here.
I hope you're looking at a Georgia championship.
I would like to see there. We got put out by Notre Dame last year, and all my Notre Dame hate this year is not based off that at all. I brush all that stuff off. I believe you win the games. You have an opportunity to win the game you play. There's no excuses. You lose, good game. You win. Let's move on to the next game. That's always been my view. I just believe that the AD kind of needs to be quiet. That's why I was against Notre Dame so much. So pleasure being here, Mark. I always love talking ball with you, my friend, and it's going to be fun.
Hey, we'll have you on again, and maybe we won't retire this. Maybe we will. We'll see what happens, as we're a little bit more of a basketball show when it comes to high school action now, but still a little college football talk as well. So, of course, a huge shout out to everyone who's part of the show this week. Adam Hansen, Chandler Harmon, and of course, Scott Stewart, our producer. And so it's been a lot of fun. We have a couple games this Friday, Giles County versus Spring Hill, which Scott Stewart and Chandler Harmon will have for you on WKSR's Facebook page and YouTube. And then Richland versus Wayne County will be on the airwaves for WKSR as well there, as Jennifer and myself will have that game. So a lot of great basketball action that you can listen to and read about in next week's paper. But for Adam Hansen, hope everyone has a great week. Hope you're enjoying this holiday season. And this has been Beyond the Box Score. Thanks and good night.